Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Perez coming to you from Baltimore. UK just had elections. Here's Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party, responding to it.
Across England last night, we were getting predictions that Labour was going to lose councils. We didn't. We hung on and we grew support in a lot of places. And there's a lot more results to come today. And we're looking forward to all of those, because our party is standing up for the steel industry, standing up against the cuts in disability payments made by this government, standing up against the grotesque levels of inequality in Britain. That is the Labour message, that the economy could and will be run in a very different way that works for all, not just a few, under the Tories.
In spite of that, the results didn't bode well for the Labour Party in places like Scotland and Wales. But in London, the party saw hope in the victory of mayoral candidate, and he's a Labour candidate, Sadiq Khan, who beat Conservative Party member Zach Goldsmith. Here to discuss the significance of these results is John Weeks. John is joining us from London. He's Professor Emeritus of the University of London and author of the new book, The Economics of the 1%, How Mainstream Economics Serves a Rich, Obscure Reality and Distorts Policy. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So let's start with the victory in London. Tell us about the new mayor and how the election results are faring there.
Well, I think that this is a very important victory for the Labour Party. Well, it's obvious, but it carries perhaps more weight than people in the United States might appreciate. London is disproportionately important in England. And has a tremendous number of MPs, and of course it has a very large portion of the population of the country. Now, Sadiq Khan is a Muslim. I think when Americans think about, if they have a shock, oh my God, a Muslim mayor of London, you should think about it rather like John Kennedy being elected president of the United States.
His campaign has been negative, it's been divisive, and it's become increasingly desperate. It's for him to answer for his campaign. I know I'm proud of my campaign. I'll be the British Muslim that defeats extremism and radicalisation. My experiences, and me being me, I think allow me to be the best mayor for London.
Suddenly, after almost 200 years, the United States had a Catholic president. And as it turned out, it didn't make any difference. And I mean, whether he was a Catholic or he was a devil worshiper or whatever. But I think that'll be the same with Sadiq Khan. It doesn't make any difference, except in a positive sense that he will be a symbol that could prove to be very useful and helpful in de-radicalizing many young people in London and in Britain, because it will be no longer possible to say that British politics is just something for the other people. It doesn't include us, the Muslims. Of course, there are
John,
Muslims.
tell us about Sadiq Khan, his character, his previous portfolios, and how his campaign did in London. It was a very interesting campaign.
Yes, well, he of course is comes from the working class. He was a union man, and he's from a relatively poor part of London. So he is someone who has, in the best traditions of the Labour Party, a member of the working class who rose to an important political position. His political campaign itself was singularly inclusive. He went everywhere. He went, obviously you can't go everywhere, but he sought to reach out to every group. He went to Golders Green, the center of the Jewish community in Britain. He went to rich neighborhoods and to poor neighborhoods, and he ran a very positive campaign with his central issue being the inadequacy of housing in London. I mean, the working class and poor people are being driven out of London because housing is so expensive, both in rents and if you try to buy one, and he has promised, and now I'm certain he will do it, to start to build housing which people can afford. It's called social housing, and has subsidized rents or subsidized prices. So if he achieves that, that will be a tremendous step forward for London, and it will, in terms of his career, make him a major figure on the British scene.
John, Sadiq Khan was also very tactful in handling what the rest of the Labour Party was having a hard time dealing with last week, which was the allegations of anti-Semitism that was charged against Livingston. And I thought, as you and I talked about in that interview we did, Jeremy Corbyn could have handled it better, but Sadiq Khan actually came quite well positioned on that issue.
He was clear and he was quick. He immediately said, as you're suggesting, this is inappropriate. The Labour Party has no room for anti-Semitism, and has no room for people who speak irresponsibly like Ken Livingstone. I think Ken Livingstone did speak irresponsibly. From time to time, Ken Livingstone has played a positive role in British politics. I would say most of that positive role was about 30 years ago when he was the head of the London Council. But Sadiq Khan was absolutely clear. He immediately said Ken Livingstone must be suspended from the party and his position reviewed. And it took Jeremy Corbyn a while to do that, which is unfortunate. It's good that Jeremy Corbyn finally did it, but he should have done it quicker, as Sadiq Khan did. And as a result of that, I think Sadiq Khan will now be seen as a very influential figure in the Labour Party.
John, how did the Labour Party do in these elections? It had some victories and had some losses, like in Scotland.
To do a quick survey, it was a disaster in Scotland, no question about it. I think the Labour Party has a very steep hill to climb there. However, that was the only disaster. And I would say in the other places, it was either a draw or it was victories. For example, there were two parliamentary elections yesterday for people who had died in office. Labour won both of them. One of them was in Sheffield, where the woman who ran for Labour increased the majority from that Labour held from 56% to 66%. So, and in Wales, the by-election was also won by Labour, and again the majority was increased, though not as much. And that should be weighed against the very small loss in the Labour Assembly by the Labour government. I would say overall that Labour, it was a draw in Wales, that they lost one seat in the Welsh Assembly, but they reaffirmed their position within the by-election. And finally, I would say that overall, the election, it didn't vindicate the new Labour leadership, but it certainly strengthened the position of Jeremy Corbyn and his cabinet. The prediction before the election by many pundits was that Labour would lose 175 council seats in England, and they lost 23. And so given that you don't want to lose any, that's still quite a good result when disaster was being predicted. So on balance, one shouldn't be too confident if you're in the Labour Party, but it could have been a lot worse, and there's some very bright spots.
All right, John, I thank you so much for joining us, and we will keep an eye on the new mayor of London and how things are going. It looks like it's going to be interesting times.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.